This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's talk about the next match here. This is Tony Schiavone's favorite WCW match, believe it or not. It's Belfast Bruiser beating Steve Regal by DQ in 17 minutes and 33 seconds, 3 1/4 stars. Else we're right. Tony Schiavone made a comeback on this match as he got it over as being brutal, even though a lot of what was taking place would go over the heads of many, if not most viewers. This was a super stiff All Japan Impact type of match with no hot moves, no build, no psychology, and a horrible finish. It really wasn't an entertaining match, but on a believability scale, it was more believable than almost anything you would see in the United States, short of a UFC match, and in fact, it was brutal than more than most of them. Not that this is a match of the year, but it is a must-see match. The two, who have wrestled each other for years, just pounded the crap out of each other. Finley's offense was the most believable in North America. At one point, Bruiser threw a punch to Regal's nose, which broke his nose and pretty well messed up his face to the point he might need surgery. He was bleeding from the nose heavily when Bobby Eaton and David Taylor interfered for the DQ. After the match, Taylor slapped Finley incredibly hard, 3 1/4 stars. These guys, I mean, obviously they know, like, and trust each other, but boy, they are pulling no punches. It's Potato City. What do you think watching this one back?
Before I get to that, let me just back up one little bit and just say, you know, the announcers for the Eddie match.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that might not have felt so good if you're sitting home is, be honest with you, our announcers, just like me sitting here today, don't know the names of a lot of those moves.
Right.
It's hard to call that match when it's lucha moves and they have their own names. And remember, this was just the beginning of the lucha era coming to America. So right. I just want to say, you know, if those guys, you know, had a rough time calling it, not knowing what to call the moves, not knowing them, I get it. To this day, I don't know what half the names are of those. So just trying to cover the, the lack of probably lucha knowledge that our announce team had. Just say it, because they're all pros. Very seldom do those guys not know what they're looking at.
Right.
Maybe that would have added to the drama of that match. Now, moving on. This is supposed to be uncensored. Anything goes, no DQ, no anything, correct?
Well, that's the way it's marketed, but it's not feeling that way so far, is it?
No. It's, number one, they should have stopped, you know, on the Eddie and Conan match. They should have stopped it, let Eddie get his stuff together a little bit, but the match should have continued once he did, because if it was accidental, you know, Conan could have backed off. Hey, I didn't mean for that to happen, and then go wherever you wanted to go, but don't let that be the end. It's too weak. Now, on this match, these guys got it.
Yes.
They understood what that pay-per-view was based on. Uncensored, anything goes, be as violent as you want. And you know what? They used these, their knees, and their feet, and an occasional headbutt placed in the right place, but a legitimate one. And I'm going to take a couple minutes, if you don't mind here, Conrad, and give a guy some credit.
Yeah.
That doesn't get enough credit for who he was and who he is.
I know where you're going, and I'm ready to hear it.
Well, Steve Regal was a great wrestler.
Yes, sir.
I love that European style. He could have a match literally with a salt shaker and make it good. And Fit Finley now walks in the door. Now, prior to this, before he came to work for us, just out of the blue, I was talking to Terry Funk one day up in the stands, and we were talking about, we need some fresh talent in here, something. It'd be nice if we could get somebody that nobody knew. I mean, we need some heat on some heels. And he looked at me, he said, Arn, you ought to go get Dave Finley. I said, well, who's Dave Finley? He said, he's the best heel in the business. And that came from Terry Funk at a time that, I thought I was a pretty good hot commodity. I thought Rick Rude was a good heel. I thought, Kurt Hennig was a good heel. Ted DiBiase. He said, I'm telling you, if you see this guy work, he is a vicious son of a bitch. Well, when we got fit and he came in from day one, he was an assassin. To this day, I've never seen anybody that was as vicious, had a grasp of psychology, was a nasty heel, could make guys and make himself at the very same time. And man, when he mugged you, and it was solid. It was relatively safe, I would say. But man, he sold tickets over in Europe. He was in a situation where they were in the same Otto Vance, I believe, was the promoter, and they had trailers at an arena. And for 6 weeks, they were just wrestling that same arena, and they drew every single night, 7 days a week without having to move. And it was because of guys probably not at the level, but with the same mentality as Fit Finley. But he was just he was a superstar. I was just in awe of the different things he did. That European style amazes me anyway. And him and Regal, mostly him, beat the ever-living crap out of each other. And if you didn't know who Finley was, you wanted to know when that match was over. It's a shame, and it's a little blip on it, and maybe I'm the only one on earth that feels this way. But when you've had a fight that intense and you do a run-in on the end of it, and there's an actual DQ decision and a winner by DQ announcement, if there was one, they didn't need it. If you wanted Dave Taylor and Bobby Eaton to pile in at the very end because they thought he was going to kill Regal, fine. Just let them fight through the back. It was uncensored anyway. Just let a non-decision. They fight back through the curtain and we're done. It was just a glitch, It makes you wonder, how can there be a decision when it's a no DQ match? Every match on the card was a no DQ. But point being, Dave Finley let you know who he was, and to his credit, Steve Regal took a hell of a beating that day. So kudos to those guys. One of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. And it was more like a bar fight.
Tremendous. Go out of your way to see it. If you're going to watch one thing on this, you got to see it. It's unbelievable. Regal even wrote about this in his book. Tony and I have talked about it. It's one of the most famous matches probably in WCW history.
Especially if you're a purist.
Yes.
Wrestling purist. And you want to sit down, and when that match was over and that show was over, even though there were some stinkeroos after that, everybody, I bet you, that were going to their car with their family were talking about that match. It stole the show.
It did. Next up, we've got Jim Duggan beating Bubba Rogers in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. VK Wall Street's going to come to ringside with Duggan's 2x4 and give it to Bubba as Bubba and referee Nick Patrick wrestle over the board. Duggan tapes his fist and knocks out Bubba, getting the 3 count. Meltzer would say bad and thankfully short. He gave it a 1/4 star. This match feels like warmed up old leftover WWF. You got Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the former Big Boss Man, and the former IRS. I know those guys were all in the NWA or Mid-South or somewhere beforehand, but to the masses, this probably feels like, hey, that's the old WWF guy, right?
Well, and I bet you if you went back and saw how long had they programmed for this match, if at all,
right?
It's like just a cold booking to me. Just throw 3 guys together to get them on the show. That's what it feels like.
It is.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.